Hi guys, I'm starting this segment called Update at 8, which will be everyday update till whatever has happened 8 a.m. IST. So yeah, here is today's update at 8. For the Russia-Ukraine war, the latest developments are Zelensky has uh, Zelensky has agreed is scheduled to speak via video to Congress on Wednesday. He is expected to amplify his pleas for more military aid and increase the pressure on the United States and allies, which have been reluctant to agree for Ukraine's request for Polish MiG fighter planes. US President Biden is planning to announce an $800 million in new security assistance to Ukraine on Wednesday, shortly after Mr. Zelensky's speech, according to White House officials. His administration has already pledged aid in the hundreds of millions, but Mr. Zelensky says Ukraine needs far more. Poland, Czech Republic, Slovenia. A risky visit by the Prime Ministers of Poland, Czech Republic, and Slovenia unfolded in the tight secrecy as they crossed the Ukrainian border by train after dawn on Thursday. In a statement after the meeting, Mr. Zelensky said the three leaders fear nothing, adding, I am sure that with such friends, with such countries, with such neighbors and partners, we will really be able to win. In Russia, President Vladimir Putin and Russia disparaged the second consecutive day of negotiations with Ukraine, undercutting the faint glimmers of hope raised from talks the day before that both sides were looking for a way to halt the war. In Kiev, explosions were heard under curfew. Several loud were heard at dawn. A 12-story building was damaged, but no report has been given immediately, while the press was not allowed to circulate in the city due to curfew, the second since the start of war. This is the picture of the 12-story building that was damaged. Heavy fighting is still taking place in the northwestern outskirts, in and around the towns of Irpin, Hostomel, and Bucha. Artillery fire and shelling of Odessa. According to Anton Gerashenko, advisor to the Ministry of the Interior, Russian ships fired a huge amount of missiles south to the major Ukrainian port without causing any casualties. It would be, according to him, to test the Ukrainian defense systems. A strategic place in Ukraine with its terminals from which Ukrainian cereals are exported, the large city on the Black Sea, so far spared by the fighting, has been expecting the worst for several days, as reported on March 5th. Human toll, nearly 700 civilians have been killed since the start of the war, according to UN, which is recalls that the toll is lower than reality. Nearly 3 million people have fled the fighting and shelling, including 1.6 million children. Around 2 million people have been displaced. Nearly 1,300 Ukrainian soldiers were killed, according to the Ukrainian president, while Russia released only one report in March, 498 soldiers killed. So this shows the how before and after of a street in Mariupol. This shows the intensity of the attack and the war going on there. So Zelensky says that negotiations are in peace talks sound more realistic. Vladimir Zelensky indicated progress in peace talks following Tuesday's round of negotiations. In a video address last night, Zelensky revealed the positions in the negotiations already sound more realistic. He added that time is still needed for the decisions to be in the interest of Ukraine. Talks between Russian and Ukrainian negotiators are set to continue later. So here's the intelligence update by the Ukrainian Defense Intelligence. Russian forces are struggling to overcome the challenges posed by Ukraine's terrain. Russian forces have remained largely tied to Ukraine's road network and have demonstrated a reluctance to conduct off-road maneuver. The destruction of bridges by Ukrainian forces has also played a key role in stalling Russia's advance. Russia's continued failure to gain control of air has drastically limited their ability to effectively use air maneuver, further limiting their options. The tactics of the Ukrainian Armed Forces (UAF) have adeptly exploited Russia's lack of maneuver, frustrating the Russian advance and inflicting heavy losses on the invading forces. In Kharkiv, at least 500 civilians were killed in the shelling of Kharkiv, which happens to be Ukraine's second largest city, since the start of the war, as the city's emergency service agency reported. The true number of deaths could be much higher, the agency said in a statement on Facebook, noting that emergency workers will continue to scour the rubble of residential neighborhoods for more bodies, often under fire. The advisor to the Minister of Internal Affairs, Vadim Denisko, said that a number of regions in Ukraine there is a threat of mines by Russian occupiers of agricultural lands. In fact, unfortunately, there is a threat to agriculture in a number of regions as well. Not only industrial facilities are changing, not only infrastructure facilities, and not only cities, but unfortunately agricultural lands. So here is the updated Russian losses according to General Staff of Armed Forces of Ukraine. So yeah, here you can see the number of aircraft they've lost, and what was in the bracket is the number of aircraft they lost yesterday, and the number that's outside the bracket is the total number of things they lost. So Russia withdraws from the Council of Europe ahead of expulsion vote. For your information, the Council of Europe is an international organization which aims at upholding human rights, democracy, and the rule of law in Europe. It is mostly known for the European Court of Human Rights, which functions on the basis of European Convention on Human Rights. A Russian-owned yacht is stuck in Norway as oil suppliers refuse to fuel it. A Russian-owned super yacht is stranded in northern Norway because local oil suppliers refuse to refuel the ship amid Russia's war in Ukraine and the sanctions that many countries have imposed on Moscow as a result. The yacht, Ragnar, owned by former Russian oligarch Vladimir Strelkovsky, a former KGB agent who made his fortune in nickel mining and is a long-time associate of President Vladimir Putin of Russia. Mr. Strelkovsky has also served as deputy minister. Although Mr. Strelkovsky is not on European Union's sanction list targeting Russia since the invasion of Ukraine, politicians from several Norwegian parties have urged their government to confiscate the super yacht. So here's a picture of Ukraine's ambassador to NATO, Natalia Galibarenko, who waits for the start of the North Atlantic Council during a meeting of NATO defense ministers in the organization's headquarters in Brussels, Wednesday, March 16th, 2022. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg made it clear on Tuesday that the 30-nation military alliance is set to radically alter its security stance in Europe in response to Russia's war against Ukraine. So here is map of all the bombings and places of Russian stand troops in as of 15 March. So as you can see, there are Russian troops advancing towards Kiev and troops which are going near Kharkiv as well. There are troops in Kherson, stationed in Kherson. However, there are no troops in Odessa, as you can see. But there is expected to be a lot of fighting going there in the next week or so. So Zelensky gets a standing ovation from Congress before his speech. The House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, introducing Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, said her fellow members of Congress have great respect and admiration in appreciation for your courageous leadership. President Zelensky offers thanks and greetings from Kiev, saying it is a city on a daily missile and airstrikes, but it doesn't give up. We have not even thought about it for a second, he says. He says the country is in the worst war since World War II, and he has been resisting Russian aggression for 8 years. Interim measures have been granted by the ICJ in context of dispute relating to the interpretation, application, and fulfillment of the 1948 Convention of Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide between Russia and Ukraine. The measures are: the ICJ requested Russia, pending the final decision in the case, to suspend its military operation that had commenced on 24th February 2022 in the territory of Ukraine. The court considers that the Russian Federation must also ensure that any military or irregular armed units which may be directed or supported by it take no further steps in the furtherance of these military operations, which refers to the Donetsk People's Republic and the Lugansk People's Republic. The court also indicated additional measures directed to both parties and aimed at ensuring a non-aggravation of the dispute. The ICJ provisional measures are binding upon both the countries, however. For context, Ukraine filed an application against the Russian concerning the interpretation of the 1948 Convention on the Prevention of and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide. Ukraine contends that Russia has falsely claimed that acts of genocide have occurred in Luhansk and Donetsk in Ukraine. Ukraine contends that Russia then declared and implemented a special military operation against Ukraine with the express purpose of preventing and punishing purported acts of genocide that have no basis in fact. US will provide 800 million more in military aid to Ukraine, as I said before. This is what Biden has said. However, he's added that it will include 800 anti-aircraft systems, including longer range, 9,000 anti-armor systems, 7,000 small arms, which include machine guns, shotguns, grenade launchers, and 20 million rounds of ammunition, along with drones. Russian Delegation Minister M. Podolak says that draft peace plan requested by Financial Times reflects only what Russia is requesting. The published plan envisions considerable concessions for Ukraine, including a neutral status and limitations on military power. Ukraine has officially legalized Bitcoin after President Zelensky signed the virtual assets bill to law. Biden briefly speaks to reporters and says that Vladimir Putin is a war criminal. Slovakia has agreed to transfer the S-300 missile systems to Ukraine, but only if NATO agrees to reimburse them. Slovakia has preliminary agreed to provide Ukraine with S-300 air defense system as per three sources. US and NATO are still grappling with how to backfill that country's own defensive capabilities, and transfer is not yet assured. Rescuers extracted 5 bodies, among 3 of them children, from the rubble of destroyed dormitory at Zaz district in Chernihiv. As I said yesterday, that they had lost, Russia had lost 4 generals in 2 weeks, and the 4th one had not been identified, but now the 4th one has been identified. The 4 generals that they have lost are Major General Andrei Sukhovetsky, who was killed on February 28th, Major General Vitaly Gerasimov, killed on March 7th, Major General Andrei Kolesonov, killed on March 11th, and Major General Oleg Mitayev, killed on March 14th. As you can see here, these are the images of the 4 generals that Russia had been killed by Ukraine. Thank you.